Right now, we're going to go live on the main feed in a second. And I know there's music playing. Just hold on. I'm going to get to that in a minute. I'm very excited for today. Today is a very, significant day in live streaming. We'll give a few minutes for everybody to come in here. And so now I'm enjoying the fact that I'm live on, what's it called? On all the streams, like a YouTube and Facebook and whatever. But I have to enjoy the fact that I am not going to get a copyright strike for music because I think I've figured something out. But anyways, we'll get to that. We'll get to that a little bit later on. We'll give it a few minutes for people to pile in. Beth, Happy New Year to you too. And yes, may 2026 be the best year of your life for you and your family and everybody you care about. And I wish that to all of you. So a good morning. And I hope you had an amazing New Year's. And I hope you got to spend it with people that you love. And you got to make the best of it, as so many of you do. I appreciate everybody who's sent all the New Year's wishes and the early birthday wishes. I appreciate it, but still too early for that. But thank you very much. We're going to get into a few things in a couple of minutes, and we're just going to let people join in. So I firstly, like, share, and subscribe if you can. We're going to talk about a few things that are going on in the cultural zeitgeist, in the news, things that we're all concerned about. So please like, share, and subscribe. I did try to do a couple of test streams, as you saw, while I was traveling. One of which being when I was in Naples, and then last week in Niagara Falls. And that second one, Niagara Falls, I knew that was going to fail, and it did. Not because of my equipment, but if you ever go to Niagara Falls and you ever stay at the Hilton, and you are hold on, let me put that on Do Not Disturb. If you ever stay at the Hilton, do not, I repeat, do not anticipate being able to use the Wi-Fi for more than, 4 or 5 minutes at a time. Just kept cutting out. Never seen such bad Wi-Fi in a hotel. Nonetheless, I've seen lots of terrible hotel Wi-Fi's, but not like this. And that includes the South America and the third world. So hat tip to you, Hilton Niagara, for having the worst. It was like being trapped in 1996 without the dial-up noise and all that sort of stuff. But I hope you all had an amazing Christmas. I hope you had an amazing New Year, and I hope you got to spend it with those that you loved. And this is an opportunity for a reset, like it is every year. This is when we go to the gym, and all of a sudden the gym is packed for 30 days. And then it quiets down again. But, it is what it is. Human behavior is, if anything, very predictable. For those of you who like to travel, and I guess for a lot of the Bitcoiners out there, I'm going to be in Colombia in the middle of January. I'm going to be giving a keynote at the Medellin Bitcoin conference. So if you are in the neighborhood, as I'm sure many of you will be just hanging out in Medellin, but no, if you do want to hop a flight and come to an amazing Bitcoin conference, that is one that I highly recommend. It's one of the better ones I've been to last year. I spoke there as well. And for context, because I know often South America for some people is a little bit daunting. It's only a 2.5 hour flight from Fort Lauderdale or Miami. Either airport has regular flights going to Medellin, so it's very accessible, and it's not terribly expensive to travel there. Anyways, so that's it for the quick, short messages, and I hope you all had a great time. I want to talk about a few things that are going on right now. One of them, I guess it relates to the fact that I bet you I can do it again. I can turn on some music and I won't get copyright struck. Why? Well, I've mentioned before in this stream, we've talked a little bit, and in some of the group chats and stuff, talked a little bit about AI, and it was strange. About I don't know, month and a half ago, I think I had a weekend where it was the first time in my life where every tool that I used on the weekend, everything, for 3 days straight, I was in front of the computer. Everything was AI. Everything, just about. Um, one or two things where I had to do some, desktop publishing wasn't. But in terms of tools that I was utilizing for processing, organizational structure, for posting, all that sort of stuff, editing, whatever, everything was some form of AI. And I bring this up just because like nobody's going to tell anybody what to do. But I might suggest that it's way more in your interest to get comfortable with AI tools, which are actually quite intuitive and user friendly. They have pretty well designed UXs, which is UX is the design, basically the interface. Um, I think it's a lot easier than people think. I think it's one of the people hear the term non-techies and they get turned off by it. But I think it's important for a number of issues, but I'm going to give you one in particular. For all the time that I've been involved in political action, political movements, whatever you want to call them, one of the frustrating things I always came up across, because of course I was dealing with conservatives, what would be I would suggest a series of strategies and tools to use, and how to engage in discourse and what in a way that you would have enough identifiable metrics, and you would be able to kind of break through to various different subclasses online and get people's attention. I mean, the idea is to get people's attention, right? And what was very frustrating, and this is dating back now to way back when. It's dating back to 2012, 2010, something like that. And what was frustrating is I would be with many of these people, and they would just end with, "Well, I'm just not good with computers," right? You'd go through their different refutations and explain um, how to overcome each one, and then you eventually would converge on, well, I'm not just good with computers. And I think in some places, in the case of some people, is just maybe it's just an excuse not to get involved, but not for everybody, of course. And you could tell there's people who were legitimately frustrated. And I think we are at, having grown up with a computer since I was 4 years old. So what are we talking, 1980? I'm seeing so many parallels between the late 90s and the late 80s and early 1990s to today. And I think everything is going to change over the long term way more than anybody realizes. It's another example of that, overestimating change in the short term and underestimating it over the long term. And so now is your opportunity, whether you're good with computers or not good with computers. The whole dynamics of how things operate is going to be completely shifted towards AI. And now's your opportunity to learn at a very beginner level with everybody else. All of society, even the developers and programmers, they're learning along the way. So yeah, you're not going to be coding, but you're at a point where it's a very beginning. If you get in and you understand how AI works, then you will in the future not be, constrained by this, I'm not good with computers philosophy, or in the future it'll be, I'm not good with AI. So I highly encourage people to do this. So what I've been doing is, and I mentioned before, I don't know, month and a half ago, whatever it was, the entire weekend was the first time that just about every tool I used for 3 days straight were different AI tools I was using for productivity purposes. Well, a few days ago, it was actually the very end of 2025. I had the first day that just about every tool on my phone, because I was remote, just about every tool I used that day was AI, whether it was Gemini or AI in Google Maps, or Grok, or Suno, which we'll talk about in a second, I was using just a multitude of AI platforms from my phone. So it's not just on the computer. Now it's on the phone. So now you can see where this is all going. That the idea of having apps on your phone, that's not going to disappear immediately, like in the short term, but it will definitely disappear over the long term. And I think, especially as we see Tesla's clearly going in the direction of developing a phone like device that will use Starlink for making phone calls. And I think Elon Musk even indicated that it'll generate apps on the fly. So there won't be actual programmed apps or an app store. You'll just basically talk to your phone, or which will be, I guess, administered by Grok, the same way a Tesla is administered. And you'll say, create I don't know, a Microsoft Word document about whatever the topic is. And it'll create its version of Microsoft Word on the fly, create the document within it, and then save the docx file. So things are really going to change a lot more than people realize. So get on with AI. So here are the advantages. The advantages are when you are resistant to the fear of technology that most of us have. I don't, but I think most of us do. In my case, I've tried everything: video editors, audio editors. I'm trying to resystematize my whole workflow process for the next couple of years. And one of the ones I discovered, one of the platforms I discovered, is Suno. So what is Suno? Suno is AI music generating. And I remember when the idea of AI music and videos came out, everybody's like, well, it's not real. It's not done by a person. And even I was like, wow, people aren't really going to accept that. And then I started to use the tool, and it's very interesting. I've cut so many, I don't know, 20, 25 tracks already in Suno, and just trying to learn how the platform works. I'm getting to a point with all of this, I promise you. And so maybe it's because I play a bunch of instruments and I always have played music since I was a little kid. I think when you understand music and you understand, key signatures and time signatures and how music is structured and all that sort of stuff, then I think it becomes an asset that allows you to tailor the AI generated music. And if you can write lyrics and you understand how the music is created, you use the platform, in this case Suno, um, and you spend a lot of your time on prompting. You learn, like all AI platforms, you have to learn how to prompt. But once you learn how to prompt and you start applying that with your music skills into a music AI generator, then all of a sudden, boom, the world just opens up for you. It is such a complete game change. Now, I think the average person, Scott Adams has talked a little bit about this. We're going to talk about him in a few minutes. That people are not going to be, if there's no person behind it, then people are going to ignore it. And while I understand his point, I think there's a little bit more nuance. And the nuance is AI assisted. AI assisted is very different than AI music. So if you create AI music and then you open up a sequencer and you start editing the music within, so you're using it as a base, and then you modify it, and you've created all the lyrics and you've decided the direction of the creativity where it's going, then all of a sudden it's not AI music. It's the modern equivalent of a DJ. And I remember when DJs became popular, when the 90s, all of a sudden everybody's, DJ this, DJ that, or even late 80s. Those of us who played music were a little bit, I don't know, kind of. What do you mean he's Dr. Dre? He didn't go to medical school for 8 years. You know what I mean? And so the same sort of attitude that people had back then, which was, oh, DJ's not a real musician. Well, you tell that to people like, I don't know, Armin van Buuren, who fills, stadiums full of people when he's spinning tracks, as they call it. And I think AI music is going to be the same thing. So I think in the initial stage, because it's new, people are going to dismiss it. But then once people realize, well, it's AI assisted music creation, then all of a sudden we're going away from Milli Vanilli Jennifer Lopez to actually somebody who is a musician who's utilizing a tool to create and what's amazing about it is you can get, like, for example, there's a couple of tracks I've done. Each one took quite some time. It's not like you do it in 5 minutes and there you go. It actually, if you're going to really, thread that needle correctly and end up with something that's, uh, I don't know, passable product, just like all AI tools, it actually requires a lot of time to fine tune it. So, my lesson in all of this is now is the time. You are living in, I don't know, 1990. The internet was just invented, or you're living in the late 1970s, and personal computers are finally entering your home, and the VIC-20 and the Commodore 64 are down the pipeline. So if you get into the AI ecosystems now, then it's going to massively protect, for future proof yourself for the future. And the great thing is that AI is being implemented in absolutely everything. For example, like I just explained with Suno for music, or Nano Banano for image generation, or Grok has these little video generations. I actually did a music video for one of these tracks using various video generation tools and stitched it all together, manually, and came out with a video. So there's an area for everybody, where any area of your interest, AI is being applied somewhere. That's probably the best way to learn it. But I'm telling you, I think it really makes you see the world in a different way. And it'll future proof you against, well, I'm not good at AI in the future. You don't want to be in that trap 5 years from now when there is an expectation that everybody is using AI for various purposes. You don't want to be the one person in the room that says, well, I don't know how to, what's it called? I don't know how to use it. By the way, I hope everybody on Substack, I hope it's clear. You know what? I forgot to put on. See, none of you told me. I see there's a bunch of you in here, but none of you told me I forgot to put on my lapel mic. So what I'm going to do, this is exclusively for the Substack people who are special, bjdichter.substack.com. So I'm going to just lift this up a little bit here. Excuse me, just jarring the camera a bit. I'm going to find the plug and plug it in here. All right, so I hope the sound quality just got much better on Substack. I apologize for all of that. When I came back this morning, everything was, I had taken everything away because I was remote and I had to set up at the same time and try to figure out where everything was before. And everything was marked, but it's just, there's always something that's going to be overlooked when there's too much complexity. Anyways, so AI and AI music, or AI area of your choice. You decide what it is. If you're into arts, or you're into, I don't know, architecture, design, I think there's an AI app for like engineering drawings and stuff, if I'm not mistaken. I remember seeing something coming across my radar. There's a website called There Is an AI for That. It's there's an AI that for there's an AI for that.com, I think. Go there and just choose your area of interest, pick out one or two AI tools, sign up for free, and start using it. And it'll help you. I think it'll help train in a way you think about projects more broadly. But yeah, that's my tip of the day. So AI. Uh, Hi, Beth. Beth, you're amazing. Beth is probably the most loyal person who's always in here. She's always sending me messages on Instagram and Happy New Year, Happy Birthday, all that sort of stuff. So thank you, Beth. That's very sweet of you. And I don't know if you're in the Discord or not. We're going to be retooling the Discord this year for a couple of different purposes. Does everybody remember 3i Atlas? I talked about it here on a couple of times. And don't worry, we're going to get on to Iran and Scott Adams and all that because there's some things to discuss, but just some house cleaning. So the 3i Atlas, I'm calling it increasingly the 3i Atlas War of the Worlds op. Do you know what I'm talking about? That was when you would log on to YouTube and you would see all these AI generated videos about how Three Eye Atlas is a spaceship and it's going to invade the world or whatever nonsense that they were spewing. And I also don't understand how this is not the first time, but Avi Loeb, who is a professor at Harvard, a lot of words were put in his mouth in his defense, but he didn't necessarily push back when people suggested that he was suggesting Three Eye Atlas was could be an interstellar spaceship. What happened to that? Because it was supposed to be December 19th was when Three Eye Atlas had completed its passing around the dark side of the sun for us, for lack of a better term. So it is now visible to us again. And apparently, this is when the world was supposed to be, I don't know, invaded or whatever it was. What happened? All of a sudden, crickets. Crickets. Everybody's quiet now. Who are creating those AI videos to try to cause people to lose their minds? Like I thought they were entertaining. I never thought they were real, but they're good to fall asleep to, right? But whatever happened to them? All of a sudden, just complete silence. So make sure you understand that the propagandizing of us online comes from all sides, and most of it is from foreign places that are adversarial to the West, and they just want to make us nuts. That's their goal. Just make the gringos feel crazy. I mean, I don't refer to us as gringos there, but you know what I'm saying. So, Three Eye Atlas op, fake. It's not destroying the world. So you can breathe a little. See, there's another reason. Look how positive 2026 has begun. The world is not being invaded by, well, it might be invaded by stupidity, but not by what we were led to believe. Towards the end of the year, was on the radio with Mark Petroni, who I all suggest you give a follow. Mark is on Substack. I think he airs his podcast on there, which is taken from his daily radio show. And we were discussing something I was on the last show of the year, if I'm not mistaken. I think I posted part of our segment together, or our entire segment. I can't remember. But we were discussing the new left, and I brought up some points that I'm not sure. We're going to discuss it in an upcoming episode as well. Pardon me. The idea of where the left wing is going, and when I say the left wing, I'm not referring to reasonable liberal type people who could vote conservative or liberal or that sort of thing. I'm talking about like the die-hard extremists that have dominated many liberal parties around the West. Well, the idea that I propose, and I'm not the only one, there's other political scientists and experts in politics that have come to similar conclusions, that we are heading into this new era of the left, which is going to be no longer wokeism, because they're going to abandon wokeism, and that they now have a strategy to make the MAGA equivalent on the left. And by MAGA equivalent, I mean populist equivalent on the left. And you're seeing it today, or it was yesterday, I think it was, when the Muslim Brotherhood guy was sworn into office as the mayor of New York. And you notice you're already starting to see the signs of abandoning wokeism and trying to give a veil of pragmatism, which is artificial and not real. You're also going to see they're not only going to abandon wokeism, they're going to abandon environmentalism. And so these are the things that have been causing not only a lot of chaos, but already there'd been significant pushback for a couple of years. And you see people are starting to mock the climate hysteria. Everybody minus a few, the fringe minority, which are the media, and some people in the political class. But they seem to be abandoning remember, it used to be every speech, climate change is, destroying the universe and burning your pets alive or whatever they would make up, right? So they're going to abandon all of that. And they're also going to go back to the roots of the whole. I don't want to get people too upset. Let's just think practically. Jenny McCarthy, when she became a strong advocate against vaccines in the 80s, I think it was, she was no conservative. So that was an issue that really was on the political left side, or the left side of the political spectrum. That's where it originated from, right? And things just got crazy, and everybody just realized with COVID, okay, well, something's not right here, sort of thing, right? Anyways, so you're going to see the populist left is once again going to start championing that as well. So you're going to see they're going to try to pull the populist type ideas over to the left, the Democratic side, the liberal Dem side, depending which country you're in. They're going to start trying to pull all these populist issues over and give it a veneer that aligns with leftism. And that's what Tucker Carlson is there to do. That's his job. That's what he's hired for, because he's got a following of people who are not conservative but think they're conservative, but they're populists, so you can move them from one side to another. And the reason he's doing this now is to negatively impact Trump during the midterms, right? And that whole crew. That's what this is all about. And if you and kind of the bridge between the two is they've infected the libertarian movement. This is why you see the comic who's never told a joke, whatever his name, the Dave guy, whatever his last name is. That's their job. They're there to infect the the libertarians, with a leftist frame, because that becomes the bridge that you can bring people from the populist right through or across the bridge of libertarianism, and slowly, drip, 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 bring them into a new Democratic Party. In the case of the United States, and in Canada, it would be the new Liberal Party. As because I don't think Mark Carney's going to last. I think he's going to probably quit after one term. He's clearly very unhappy, and they'll find somebody. They're looking for a Mamdani-like figure to take over the Liberal Party of Canada. And if he's a terrorist as well, even better, right? That's just how it works. So you're going to end up seeing an extreme form of authoritarianism, and it's going to be based on left-wing collectivism. And it's no coincidence that you saw Mamdani use that word, the warmth of collectivism, the warmth. This is now we look at it and think, okay, this is completely ridiculous. What's this guy thinking? But think outside of your lens. Think how other people look at the world and their framing of the world. And that will sell very well to a lot of people in society, especially people who are just disenfranchised or struggling financially. I mean, I can see we all see what's happening in the trucking industry in Canada now, due to the border dispute. That industry is almost all but collapsing here. And as far as I'm concerned, that is somewhat of a leading indicator of where the economy is going. So it's going to be very appealing for people who are desperate, which is what they want to create, desperation, from people who just want anything. They just want the government to do anything, just do something. Well, the warmth of collectivism, maybe that's what they're going to sell as doing something. So if this continues, this is going to be very bad, very difficult. And, I'm also, I get so frustrated with all sides, because is the problem the progressive lunatics who did everything they could to bring this stupidity into our society? Is it the rational liberals who are either completely oblivious to what was going on, or they just went along to get along and didn't want to ruffle any feathers, so they just hid? Or is it the fact that conservatives are weak And this was always my problem with conservatives within the party. There is no they're as they're just as weak as the other side because they're the eternal fence sitters, right? They always have a spur in their ass from sitting on the fence because they will never take action unless there's somebody in their party trying to motivate people to take action. Those are the people that they will stab in the back. So I don't know who's at fault, or is it just everybody? There's fault that has to be laid all over the place, but it's going to get very bad, and uh, I I just don't see this unless people learn how to talk to their adversaries and try to reach them emotionally, which is something I tried to show them many times in many different cases. Showed the political class, in the trucker convoy just being one example, but they still can't get the hint. They still can't figure out how to communicate and message to people and to think systemically, right? Obviously, not every individual, right? There's always good people around, but just overall in general. And it's scary because we see what's happening in Iran, and Iran is a country that's been through a lot due to having, well, there you go. There's collectivism. You want collectivism? Look at the Ayatollahs since 1979, right? There's no greater form of violent theocratic collectivism that, by the way, regularly meddled in Western politics through illegal lobbying, meaning lobbying that was not registered with FARA, and bribes, cash donations, all that sort of stuff. And this is why you've seen so much chaos here. I mean, why do you think there's Hezbollah all over Brazil? I mean, who do you think put Lula in? How do you think that worked? We think all the Brazilians just woke up right away and decided, oh, we want another communist. I mean, obviously there's that undertone there, but it's South America is not what people think it is. It's not, I struggle with Americans who or North Americans who think, well, everybody in Colombia is a leftist. So I'm like, have you ever been in Colombia or South America? And I think, have you ever been to South America? Because it's the complete opposite. There's a divergence, of course. There are the Che Guevaras, but then there's a whole lot of people like you, I, and everybody else that's just pragmatic and doesn't believe in this nonsense. But so we've seen what's happened in Iran, and the same tactics that's being used right now in Canada and the United States are what led to the mullahs taking over Iran in 1979. It was the leftist student activists that that paved the way for the mullahs to take over, and then the mullahs killed them all. What was it, 30? I always hear different numbers, 30 or 40,000 student activists that were murdered immediately after the Ayatollah took power in Iran. Those were the good, left wing, hey, we all got to love each other, hippity dippy sort of student bodies, and they all got executed after they did their job as the useful idiot. And we're doing the same thing. And the people who voted in New York, that's exactly what they are. New York's going to get what it deserves. It is going to be it probably is going to take a while. Like they're not going to. I think. Well, who knows? I initially thought it's going to take a term, that they would play it safe and straddle the fence for one term till they got Mamdani in a second term, and then you would see full extremist left wing authoritarianism. But maybe it's going to happen sooner. Maybe it's going to happen really quickly. I don't know, but. It's frustrating and it's sad to watch all of this go on. While in the backdrop, you have all these people in Iran who are right on the verge of freedom finally, after what is it, 47 years, almost, something like that, that they have been under the thumb of authoritarian dictatorship. And we started to see the seeds of it during the lockdowns in Canada. And do you think it's getting any better? Has there been any opposition to any of this stuff? There's been a lot of talk, but no doing. And talk but no do. That means nothing, as far as I'm concerned, right? Anyways, so you have there's protests across all of Iran. They're burning signs of Khomeini or Khomeini, whatever the hell his name. It was of the same name. Anyways, Talk about collectivism. Or carbon copies of each other. Anyways, but there's been violence in terms of obviously the government tried to crack down, but people fought back, thank God, and so there seems to be clashes all over the streets. And what's funny? Right in the middle of that, you have these uprisings in most of the provinces of Iran right now are trying to overthrow their theocratic authoritarian dictatorship, which is essentially what Iran is. And I can't wait for Tucker Carlson this week to talk about how the Ayatollahs are all freedom fighters. But anyways, they have a whole country that's finally is at their wits' end. They have no choice. They're going to overthrow because they want to go back to having some semblance of freedom. Maybe the Shah's son, Pahlavi, will come back and will lead Iran into a more prosperous future. That's what we're all hoping for, right? But what happens right in the middle of it? Well, yesterday, I think it was yesterday, I saw the video. Yesterday, right in the middle of it, you have these people standing up to the regime. The regime is on its knees, about to collapse. And of course, a plane landed from Russia carrying Russian and Chinese weapons for the government. And I have a question. Why are Russia and China always such assholes? Really, why? Why are they always the biggest assholes in the world? Every time. Every time they can be an asshole, they're an asshole. Every time Putin could be an asshole, he's an asshole. And he just did it again. Why? Why do they always do this? What's wrong with them? What, they have syphilis rotting their brain? Like, it's crazy, right? You know what they are? They're, for those who watch Scott, and we'll talk about him in a second, they're the 25%. So Scott Adams has this ongoing um, thesis on his podcast, which is so accurate. If you've ever engaged in any sort of market research, you know this is true, that 25% of people will always screw up the easiest answers in any sort of survey question. What color is the sky? 75% of the people will say blue. 25 will check off, well, kind of purple. For whatever reason, there's always 25% of people that will just say the most ridiculous things or believe the most ridiculous things. Well, that's the Russians and the Chinese. Like, they're always checking off the 25% stupid box every time. And they just did it. It's too bad. And I hope the Iranian people can overcome it. But that is going to be a developing story, not in legacy media, of course, because the fake news doesn't cover this. That's why I banned them during the trucker convoy, if you remember, because everything that comes out of their mouths just about is bullshit. And so there's no point. And there's another example. You have the equivalent of the Berlin Wall falling, and legacy media is ignoring it. Like, how do you ignore the fall of the Berlin Wall? But that's what we've come to. Yeah. Anyways, so speaking of Scott, I did want to mention this because I know uh, there's some people follow me who listen to him as well. And for those of you who don't know, so Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert, and he's been doing a podcast now since 2015. He had announced several months back, about 6-7 months back, if I'm not mistaken, that he had prostate cancer, and it was quite advanced. I think it was in stage 4, if I'm not mistaken. And that was the day people were making fun of Joe Biden, of him having prostate cancer. And boy, did Scott Adams shut that down. Because as soon as he said, yeah, by the way, he just acknowledged the cruelty of some people. And he said, well, I have it as well, so haha, start laughing now. And at that point, he thought it was pretty much terminal, but there were some different procedures that he could go through and would go through. He spent many months on different, I don't know, he's given a little bit of the details, but it's not the point of this. And so they've discovered, they let him know a couple of days ago that it seems to be they're at their wits' end in terms of him ever getting feeling in his legs back. And what does that mean? What are the implications of that over the long term? We don't know, and that is Scott's decision to make. Um, but why do I bring this up? Because, he's streaming every day, because that's really seems to be his outlet, his emotional outlet, and a way to focus frustrations and reframing his situation. And it's funny, he's been at a really severe crossroads now for, uh, 3, 4 weeks publicly. It's been really severe. And he would give updates with his prognosis, which most people would just feel is catastrophic. But what's interesting with him, and this is why I bring it up, he would go through all the things that are wrong, and then he would say, but the good news is, and then he would focus on his energy on some positive potential outcome that may happen in the future that the doctors are looking into. That is the skill called reframing, to which he's written a book about, called "Reframe Your Brain." And anybody who has studied hypnosis knows exactly what that is. It's a hypnosis tactic or strategy, if you will. And he's been it's shocking to see somebody that's struggling so much, yet every day says, but the good news is. And you know what? If he can do that in his circumstances, then you can do them in your circumstances. And it's not easy. It's a skill, but it's a skill everybody can develop. It's a skill that I can develop. It's a skill that some of you, especially those who are there with me in Ottawa, saw me use every day. Um, and I think it's just a good way to overcome some of the adversity. And it's really interesting when people push back on me on this idea of reframing. I'm sure I haven't asked Scott if he's had people push back. I'm sure he has. But it amazes me. So the idea is, the idea of reframing is a skill that anybody can develop, and you can take out some of the most severe circumstances and reframe the positive kernels within it to a positive outcome, and that's where you focus your energy. Um, and it's more difficult in certain scenarios than others, of course. And when people they'll push back and think that no, that doesn't affect them. They don't operate that way, and I chuckle every time. It's like people. It's amazing how we often don't understand how we operate, and that how did my battery go down to 2% from like 60%? Okay, I'm gonna have to unplug the mics, Substack people. Forgive me, because we're not gonna have a power here. One second. We're gonna run out of power here if I don't plug this in. Sorry, new equipment struggles. Still trying to figure out what to use and when and why. All right. Okay. Um, so it's fascinating when people think how their software is wired in their brain is different than everybody else. That, oh, I can't reframe. Maybe that works for you. And it's interesting. Like, I look at human beings, and maybe because I grew up with computers, like hardware and software. We all have the same hardware, right? With two eyes, a nose, mouth, two legs, two arms. Most of us, same internal organs. So why would you think if all our hardware is the same, why wouldn't you think our software, i.e., the method in which we process information, is also not the exact same? In fact, it is. That's why we're so predictable. That's what we're learning from AI. It's not that AI is smart, it's that we're very predictable. And I think this is also why when Jordan Peterson, he warned of this in a different way when he said that, most people alive today who think they're, do-gooders, if they lived in, mid-century German, Germany, would be voting for the National Socialist Workers' Party. For those people who don't know, that's the left wing quote Nazi party. Um, because we're just programmed a certain way. We process information the same. Now, individualism comes in from our individual experiences, and I know this from some people in my family. It's a long story. I'll explain one day. But the idea that we have the same hardware structure but completely different software structure. That's not how human beings are. That's not how human beings are designed, evolved, however you want to look at us. And all of these skills can be learned in terms of reframing, positive outcomes, learning how to persuade people, learning how to communicate better. We can all do this. It's just it requires putting in some effort and having a better understanding of how we operate and not being, completely dictated to by our egos, at least in my opinion. So that's kind of the update with Scott Adams. That's where he's at, and he's not in a good position. And there's many of us who have formed, some friendships and some casual, private communications with each other. And then there's some people who've known him for decades long, including the president of the United States, who really weighed in and helped a lot with getting him additional health care. Well, not additional health care. Let's just say Scott tells a story. His healthcare his healthcare company, insurance company, had a really bad weekend one weekend. Good way to describe it. But the point is, the importance of maintaining humor, reframing to the positive. If he can do that in his condition, on his deathbed, then most of us don't have an excuse to complain. Most of us actually can learn this process of reframing our experiences and focusing on positive outcomes. Sometimes it's way more difficult than it is most times. But if you practice it like any other skill, if you go to the gym and you lift weights every day, you know what? Those weights get easier and easier with time. And it's the same thing with reframing your experiences. So, so I just want to close off with mentioning, what are the positives? Like, I think I always like to do something positive as we shut down, and always talk about negative stuff. And hopefully, what Iran is experiencing will be an amazing positive for the entire world. There's a lot of people who are quote experts in geopolitics who haven't a clue why this is relevant. You see this in the Thomas Massey isolationist types. Those are linear thinkers, right? They're it's just A to B to C. They don't have a systematized view of how the world works. They're not systems thinkers, which is why they struggle to understand this, and they probably never will be able to process it because it's just too complex for them. It's too complex for a linear thinker to understand that. But it'll be massive positive implications of the world if that regime falls. I think, we hope, it'll bring a lot greater peace to the Middle East. That war in Yemen, that's what it was about. It was Iran versus Saudi Arabia in Yemen. It was a proxy war. So it'll end a lot of that confrontation between Saudi Arabia and Iran in the region, which is Shia versus Sunni. And of course, there's going to be other conflicts that will pop up in the Middle East, and the Muslim Brotherhood guy in Turkey is going to cause problems or whatever. But I think Iran is probably the biggest problem and has been for quite some time. And as somebody who is and was known for being a strong, and still known for a strong advocate for individual freedom and liberty, we need to support those people that are trying to achieve what we are privileged to have in the West, that we see being chipped away. And many of us are freaking out over, well, maybe we should help the people around the world and support them in their fight for freedom, and perhaps they will reciprocate, right? And the other positive is it's a new year. right? It's 2026. It's a good time for a reset and, clean off the calendar. I mean, you probably already did it if those of you who plan quarterly, but new year, new beginnings, new opportunities, and new things that you never even imagined. I think if you reset a framing to the positive, there is positive things you never would have imagined are going to happen to you if you're open to it. You just got to look for it. You see the little seeds and kernels of great things happening in your realm, grab onto them, and I think they'll change your life. Because I don't think I'm not a big believer in determinism. I think you build your life how it is, and once in a while, we do gotta clean off and hit the reset button and continue the same framing of the world we have, but maybe go in a more positive direction. One of the things I'm going to be doing, I think, I'm trying to dramatically limit my social media time, just because it sometimes becomes a time vampire because I'm trying to do so many other things. But I think also increasingly, if you're those of you who are on Twitter Spaces, you'll see they've mainly been dominated. Obviously, not everybody, but mostly it's just mentally ill people now. It's not like it was during COVID. COVID, regular people are stuck at home, needed somebody to talk to. People have now gotten back to their lives, and it's just mainly, with a few exceptions, the truly mentally ill on there. The people who would be screaming at you walking by on the sidewalk. Instead of doing that, they're just going on Twitter Spaces and doing the same. Michelle, well, thank you. I'll get to that in a second. So yeah, that's all I wanted to suggest to everybody. I don't know if I'm going to do a stream tomorrow or not. I may have a meeting in the morning. I'm trying to figure out a way to do these more regularly. That's the whole point of testing these remote tools, which I think I'll be able to use this device, which is using the Substack. The only problem is I can't from that phone, which is one of those big fold out tablet phones. If I can stream to the encoder and with Substack simultaneously, then we're good to go. Then I'll be able to do it. And I don't want it to be like one day it's on one platform, one day it's only on a few. Like, I want it to be consistent, systematized, and organized before I can commit to doing it regularly. But that's the goal at this point. And hopefully we'll get there. If I didn't have, three other massive things in my life, it would be a lot easier to focus on. Unfortunately, I do have three other things that take up about 50 hours of my week, and that's why it's difficult to squeeze this in. But that is going to be changing very soon, and we'll talk more about that soon. Thank Cheryl. You're wonderful. Cheryl says, "Thank you, BJ. It's wonderful to see you live again. Your views on all issues is always one truly." It's cut off. I can't see it. One I truly hold on, let's see. Views on the world issues is always one I trust. Well, thank you very much, Cheryl. Much love and respect. Much love and respect to you and your family and all your loved ones and your pets, everybody's pets as well. We love our pets too. So be good to everybody. And Beth says, yeah, the mind is very powerful. Positive state of mind can help have a powerful impact on physical health and well-being. Yes. Yes. I was very happy to hear Scott actually mentioned this, but you learn this in some of the stuff that both he and I have studied, that and he's been talking actively about this given his health situation, so it's understandable. But the idea that it's not your mind or your body, it's one system. There's a great talk by Russell Ackoff, one of I guess it's most historical speeches that he gave on systems. And if you take that approach to your body, that is why what you eat and what you consume affects not just your physical appearance or, as I'm slowly proving again, your reduction in visceral fat, but also your mind too. It's the same thing. And there's this supplement I take called creatine, and creatine is now, they've discovered after many, many years, not only has a profound impact on your muscles' ability to retain water for the for the purpose of growing them when you work out, but it also has significant positive effects on your brain and ability and your cognitive function because it's one system. And I think if you look at your body and your mind as one system and you focus on understanding you not only need to train physically, but you need to train mentally, that's how you get a good, solid, complete package that is robust. And learning to reframe and focus on the positive is, I think it's like the mental equivalent of doing physical fitness in the gym, like doing a bench press if you're a guy, or what are girls all big into that. You go to the gym now, every girl's doing the hip thrust thing, whatever, squats, you choose your exercise. But reframing is just one of the many mental exercises I think we can all do that helps reduce anxiety and allows us to focus a little bit better on things and reframe to the positive. Anyways, I hope that is helpful. And Cheryl and Beth and everybody else watching in the future, in the past, I know there's 200, 300 people watching right now. I don't know which platforms you're on because I'm still experimenting with this, but wherever you are, I love you all. I wish you all a very happy and healthy and very prosperous 2026. Like I said during the convoy, I want people to make lots of money and be very successful. I think that is a good way to cure the world as well, economic benefits. Um, yeah, and be good to each other. Be good to strangers. It'll make you feel better about yourself. And we will all talk soon. I don't know if it's going to be next day or so. It may be, but if not, it's going to be very soon as well. All right. Have a good day, and we'll talk to you all soon.